George Carter, Lester Fleming. Are these people that you know?
Who's the second one, George?
George Carter was the winemaker.
Oh, yes, Carter.
Oh, did you? Okay. Cornelius Peck, the attorney. George Taylor we're going to get next week from the Enology Society. Andre Telechev. Howard Summers. Oh, so she doesn't want to go over there. Are you on?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There's practically no sound of any human existence in the area even.
Oh.
It's so quiet it almost scares you.
Is that right?
And at night, when we go on the trip, we're always looking forward to coming home.
Yeah, I bet. Are you on, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
Joe, how did you...
John.
John. I had a Joe down there, so I'm going to be calling you Joe.
Well, it was a peculiar thing. I worked in a bank initially after my schooling, and there was another John there, and my name was changed to Joe then, and it was accepted afterwards for a while. But when we married, and Josephine, her name was Joe, so I reverted back to John.
Okay. Tell me about your involvement in the Washington wine industry, because that's why we're here today.
Well, we were naturally cognizant of the fact that we raised excellent fruit locally here, and it was difficult during the Depression to dispose of such fruit. So we went to the farmers and purchased apples. And incidentally, they had some grapes locally too. They had Island Belle grapes primarily here in Bellevue. And we started a little plant in Seattle. And it must have been about 32.
Mm-hmm. And what was the plant for?
Well, we made apple wine and we made grape wine too.
Okay.
And later on, when we were able to get berries, we used loganberries, blackberries, cherries, fruit wines.
Oh. So were you part of the original Nawico or American Wine Cellars?
Well, we purchased Nawico, about, it must have been around 36 or something like that.
Oh, I see. Did you have any...
We bought several other smaller wineries in Seattle. I even forget the names of them. But you see, the majority of those people were farmers initially. And when Prohibition was repealed, they became producers and, of course, had to be businessmen. And that sometimes didn't work out too well. And so the smaller wineries had eventually they had to make up their mind which way they wanted to go, either be producers or business people to sell the products that they produce. Well, we went both ways. We very soon recognized that in order to produce the type of wines that we wanted to produce, we had to get cuttings and plants, and we got those from California. We knew Herman Wente real well, and these other people that used to be the Christian Brothers. We've been there repeatedly. And of course, the University of Davis helped us considerably with the East cultures, whatever the advice they could give us.
How many years were you in business before you made those contacts with the California vintners?
Oh, I think it may have taken a couple of years. I recall Herman Wente coming up here. He had heard that we had made an effort to start a wine industry here, and he recognized that our local grapes had considerable acid content, which was lacking in the California grapes. So I still remember when he said, you know what we ought to do eventually? We'll make our type of wine, you make yours, and we combine the two, and we'll have an excellent product. Never came to that point because California seemed to more or less go to red wines for a long time. Their red wines had sufficient acidity to make them palatable and, of course, lasting.
What was your role in the company? Did you play an active role in the management of the company?
Yes, I was manager of the company.
I see. So you dealt with the farmers and you dealt with the...
Yeah, well, naturally, we all kind of helped each other later on when the thing got a bit bigger. Like Les Fleming, for instance, he had a little organization over there, and he did all the purchasing of the grapes for us. If and when we needed some, which we always did. But we had several fairly large vineyards over there, which were sold later in '73 when we sold the company. And much to my regret, we sold it all, but I only had one daughter, and she was married to an attorney, and there was probably a good reason for me not to consider that she would carry on.
Mm-hmm. But it's really developed into something of international acclaim and position now, didn't it?
Yes, I think we were very fortunate in being able to interest U.S. Tobacco Company and St. Michel. Incidentally, that name was as a result of our daughter's efforts. She suggested it, and it was accepted, and she had just come back from France and was quite impressed with the St. Michel and the name. But they've done a splendid job, as you probably know.
Tell me about some of the early people that you dealt with, and
Allison.
Allison. All of a sudden my mind went blank.
That's right.
Tell me about some of those people.
Well, Allison rose through the ranks. He was hired by the company over in Eastern Washington, and he showed an unusual interest and, of course, ability to do the work that we expected him to do. And having such people with us was, of course, a real asset to us. I made a trip over there about, maybe every couple of weeks, maybe more often, but we telephoned. We kept our plant here in Seattle. In fact, we had both kept an Orico plant here, too, for 10 or 15 years, I don't remember, till we eventually disposed of it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about some of your associates that were with you in the industry.
Well, they were business people here in Seattle, and were interested in what I suggested at the time. My father used to be a wine man on the Moselle River in Germany,
Oh,
and I was born there. So it was more or less in my blood that eventually I would drift into this.
I bet you were excited when they first started producing some of those Riesling grapes then.
Oh yes, yes, I was very anxious to get them going, and of course it took a long time to get the cuttings, because California was equally anxious, and they had more connections, of course, than the former years. Some of them had been in the business, of course, for many, many years.
Were you making the wines over here then on this side of the state?
No, we would ferment our grapes over in eastern Washington, and then we brought them over here for aging. Sometimes it was necessary. We had facilities here too to crush, and sometimes when they were overloaded over there, we'd bring the grapes over here too.
You did most of your bottling down though here, didn't you? Or at least you did when I first remembered the plant in the 50s, the 60s.
Yeah.
So you did all your production work over here.
Over here, yes.
Did you ever ship these grapes outside the state, like to British Columbia or
Yes, we did.
Oregon and places like that?
Well, every once in a while when we were overloaded and they were anxious to purchase grapes, we would help them out. It was more or less a give and take. We never were able to buy from them, and sometimes we were a little short. The difficulty was in eastern Washington, we had severe winters, and during the winter time, quite frequently, the entire crop would freeze out. So what we did, we buried the grapes, which was, number one, quite costly, and it was a disagreeable job. Took a lot of men. They had to hold the grapes down, and then the plows would come along and cover them. So you can imagine that was a real job. But it's done now. We take a chance, just like France and Germany are doing. If you have a bad winter, it'll eliminate perhaps maybe 15–20% of your grapes, just replant. So this is what's being done now.
I think the grapevines too are learning to be more hardy and to seek different kind of root structures.
Yes, eventually they probably.
In those years, it was kind of, no one really had a lot of knowledge, did they, about the product?
No, this is all new.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to do a lot of thinking and make your mistakes. So it wasn't all gravy, I can tell you.
Did it, when did you get Vic Allison over? Do you remember when you brought him over?
Well, he was in eastern Washington. Well, this was kind of bad. We got those right along.
Aspects, this is one of the questions. What was your greatest influence on this redevelopment of wine industry here? Was it your vision that this could work as an industry, or kind of tell us what drove John Molz?
Well, I had actually, we didn't know how far we could go, but I knew that it could be successful, and the country as such always appealed to me, and of course eastern Washington was the logical extension that we needed, and the cooperation of the two districts. In fact, we tried at one time to raise grapes on our large Whidbey Island property.
Uh-huh.
We had about 500 acres up there. And we put in some grapes. If I remember correctly, we had about 20 or 25 acres. But they just didn't do too well. Perhaps eventually the grapes might have become hardy, sufficiently hardy to make it, but we decided to discontinue raising grapes on this side. So we did everything over in eastern Washington.
Were the farmers cooperative with you when you started out, and did they?
Oh yes, naturally we paid a fairly good price. Initially, most of the grapes over there were Concord grapes, and New York State made a Concord wine. A lot of people object to the Concord flavor in that, so we never used it for our wine purposes. And it took a long time, of course, to raise sufficient quantities of grapes over there to satisfy our inventory.
How many other people were involved with you by the time you sold it to? Was it the two gentlemen from Texas let's see, I'm trying to think of the man that purchased the winery from you folks?
Oh, well, that was, let's see,
my mind has gone blank too. Ogilvy, was it?
I forgot who he was.
And they had it for about a year, and then they showed.
Yeah, just for about a year. Well, they had heard that we were anxious to make a sale at one time or another reasonably soon, and they made an offer, and so we took it. But they had no intention, apparently, of staying in the business.
Had you changed the name to Chateau Saint Michel by then? I think
we had the label, but the winery as such was called American Wine Growers.
Right. What things did you try that didn't seem to work out for you, that you were not so much failed at, but just do you have any remembrances of things that just didn't work out as well as you'd hoped?
Well, I really wouldn't say that there was anything that I think the market eventually determined what we did. Initially, we made primarily sweet wines because we recognized that our local population was quite strongly Scandinavian and English, and most of those Northern European people prefer a sweet wine rather than a dry wine. So we made Loganberry wine, blackberry and cherry, and the various wines that require a certain amount of sweetness to be palatable. And so they are still desirable. It's surprising. I talked to Saint Michel the other day, and they're still making a certain amount of Loganberry wine, even though they sold the label many years ago.
Isn't that farm that you mentioned is the largest Loganberry berry farm in the world, isn't it? Or at least
It was, that's right, yeah.
and it was a magnificent thing to see.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. We have a summer home up there,
Yeah.
right alongside the farm. And we were up there the day before yesterday again. We probably make that our place to go when we live in an apartment or wherever we'll be here. You see, we are just the two of us, and the house is too large. We have over 6,000 feet, so it's fairly large.
Doesn't Chateau Saint Michel use almost all that berry now in their liqueur, the Whitby?
I think so.
Of course, they have to make wine before they make the liqueur. So,
That's correct.
so they
Yeah.
probably make wine out of all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
They still maintain that
Yeah,
farm,
they
don't
still do. Yes.
Uh-huh.
In fact, they had last Sunday. They had a Loganberry festival,
Oh,
and I had an invitation, but we unfortunately couldn't make it.
Uh,
But,
how about other people that you brought into the industry? You mentioned Vic Allison. Are there others that you were responsible of bringing into the industry and introducing them to the trade?
I don't think so. I think they came of their own volition, and some stayed and some didn't. We never had any difficulty finding people that we were happy to have with us.
It's considered a romantic industry today,
It is.
and it attracts a lot of people. Was it just as attractive 40 years ago or 35 years ago?
Yes, I
mean, the
think
industry-
perhaps even more so.
Uh-huh.
I think since it has become such a popular industry here, I'm a little bit concerned that it might be overdone. You know how our industry operates. If a certain industry is reasonably successful, you can't keep people out of the industry. And first thing you know, there's trouble. I believe that the person should become associated with something that he likes, then he'll be successful.
Isn't there something mystical about working with wine?
It is very much so. When you think that the common yeast culture converts grape juice into alcohol and sugar, it's a remarkable thing. And of course it takes, I think, love and patience, a lot of patience to nurse a wine along and make it palatable, saleable, and enjoyable.
Tell me about who thought of bringing up, I know that I've interviewed both of them, so I have their points of view, but how did Andrei Chelichev get involved? Were you in the business?
Yes,
You would have been, right? Sure.
yes, we heard of him, and we were thinking of introducing red wines too over here, Cabernet Sauvignon and things of that nature. And knowing of his reputation, we asked him to come by, and we had him as a consultant for several years.
Yeah, he's about your age, perhaps.
Yes, the last time I saw him was when we celebrated Les's birthday over in Eastern Washington, and I haven't seen him since.
My wife,
I think he's 90, past 90.
91, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Was he 90?
91 or 93.
Yeah, he is.
Oh
90.
boy, oh boy.
He had his 90th.
He has a son in Mexico, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
He's back at work for the United Vintners, going around the country doing wine tastings and instructions for them. So he doesn't give up the trade. My wife keeps telling me there must be something wonderful about wine because of all the people we've interviewed.
Well, when you think, I knew Louis Martini quite well, and I remember going into his office, and he had a refrigerator there, and he was a pretty old gentleman when I first met him, and he showed me his sparkling muscatel that he made just for his own family. It was really, he just loved the wine that he made, and that's why he stayed in there.
Yeah, of course, that Muscatel is a grand old favorite of the Italians.
Yes, it is.
The Christian Brothers that I worked for, their highest selling single wine was Muscat de Frontignan.
Yeah, we stopped there and bought some glasses at Christian Brothers. I remember we had six glasses, and one of them broke, Oh, we only got 5 left. We have to go down there again.
They're owned by United Vintners now too. They're
Oh, yeah.
Hubline, they're
I
an
see.
international company.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about Andrei Telechev, and he was a pretty strong-minded person. Was he well accepted up here when he first came with his ideas? You know, his ideas probably were somewhat different than
Yeah.
viticulture and that sort of thing.
Well, I think he was a little bit hard to get acquainted with.
Uh-huh.
When you liked a person, he'd do anything for you. But some people probably didn't get along with him too well. As far as our relations were concerned, they were very cordial. And he liked the boys in Eastern Washington particularly.
Well, they were the guys who were raising the grapes, and
Yes,
yeah, that's really was his long suit, wasn't it?
that's correct, yes.
And his,
Actually, I could never quite comprehend how he happened to get into the wine business. He came from Russia. Whether he was, I never talked to him about his past, but I assume he may have come from southern Russia, perhaps down by the
yeah, he was trained in Czechoslovakia,
Czechoslovakia.
and then he went to France, and then
I
he went to
see.
California. So
Mhm.
yeah, we all sometimes take a roundabout way, but like you, he must have chosen the right profession,
Yes.
and it sticks with both of you. Do you do any other than to have friendships? Do you do anything in the business anymore?
I must admit there aren't too many of our old-timers left. I have difficulty finding friends now. I play golf down here at Overlake, and most of the old gentlemen are gone. And I had to resign when I have a pacemaker now, and
Oh.
so I can't do too much anymore.
Brother Timothy, my old boss, just got a pacemaker last month, or about a month ago.
Well, I've had it for about 2 or 3 years now. At first, it didn't bother me at all, but now I have a little difficulty, particularly when I try to do a little bit of maintenance work here in the yard.
What was the most important event in your mind, or events that led to this explosion of grape growing in Washington State? Can you single out any things that seem to push it along?
Well, I think our liquor board, the liquor commission, was extremely helpful at the beginning. We were permitted to contact the retail outlets, whereas out-of-state wineries had to go to the liquor board. They got a discount there, but we had naturally a definite advantage. And we fully appreciated it, and it helped us, of course, a great deal to get started. I don't believe that this is the case anymore at this stage.
Were you fearful when that privilege was lost?
I don't think so. No, I think particularly the ones that remained in the business are financially strong, and this is what counts.
So, in other words, you felt all along that
That would end someday, yes.
but that it would grow, that there was growth potential.
That's right, yes.
Did you ever have any idea that there would be 90-some wine licenses in your state?
No, we certainly didn't. We were number 8,
8?
and now there are quite a number, because many of the old ones are gone, like Summers even, whom you probably met,
Right.
Howard. They had a little vineyard over in Grapeview, but they never, I think they were more interested in the real estate development than in the farming.
Right. What do you remember? Any particular humorous or unusual events during these years that you were associated with the wine business?
Well, I don't believe that I could come forth with any kind of humorous stories. Like Lester, he used to enjoy things. I always carried considerable responsibility, and I don't mind telling you that there were days when naturally every business has to watch its income and outgo, and so I had that responsibility always.
Lester must have been fun at all times. We interviewed him.
That's right.
He seems to enjoy life, doesn't
That's
he?
right. Yeah, he's financially independent. I think they own a couple of businesses now. There were buildings, and he had a little farm, and he was the kind of person that knew his limits and enjoyed life to the fullest.
I think he still is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's amazing. I keep in touch with him because I like him.
Yeah, he was instantly likable. It wasn't hard to like.
Yes.
Like you say, he enjoys life for the
Yeah.
fullest.
Did you meet him down at the plant?
Yes, he came down to the plant. He still goes there every day, I think. He has keys. So he's almost like as it was years ago.
Yes.
I don't know what his. He says he's a consultant now.
Yeah, that's
A
right.
consultant covers a lot of things, doesn't he?
That's right. Well, he knows every drain pipe and drain connection and whatever has to be. If we wanted to know something, he'd call Les. Because Allison in those days had gradually advanced and he had more work to do with the sales personnel.
He told us a funny story about the still almost blowing up over there. Probably wasn't funny at the time.
No. And he probably didn't tell me about it
No,
either.
right. No, he didn't. No. Okay, outside of the state, who, and we mentioned Vic Allison had a strong role, and Lester Fleming. Do you call others that were instrumental in pushing Andrei Chelychev? Any others that you were associated
No,
with?
I don't think anyone else was using him at the time. I don't know whether he's taking care of Columbia out there now too. Was he retired,
Who's that?
Chelychev?
Yeah, I think he's retired from all of the other contacts, including Chateau Saint Michel now, and just works for United Vintners,
Oh, I see.
which is now Christian Brothers, United Vintners, Inglenook, BV. So it's all that whole
Oh,
complex.
BV also?
Yeah. And that's owned by Allied Vintners in London.
I see.
So I think he's associated specifically with BV, though, again, which is, of course, where he started. So
I always had the greatest admiration for BV. Fine company.
well, I think his sense of standards were a good addition to us up here, and others have reported that his vision of what this could be, if certain kinds of standards were maintained in the field and in the plant.
Yes.
And I think he's well credited by others,
Yes.
I'm sure by you.
Well, he certainly was sold on our grape, our vineyards. We have excellent yields here,
Yep.
and he was surprised that what we did when we bought a fairly large vineyard in Sela. No, it wasn't Sela. It was south of Plaza. It belonged to the Jewish people.
Was that the 500-acre
Yes,
vineyard that you bought? That took a lot of guts, didn't it?
yeah, it did.
And you probably had to sign the check for that, didn't you?
Yeah, and I believe in paying cash,
Oh, do you?
no mortgages.
I see.
So we always had a very good reputation.
Yeah, that vineyard troubled you for a while there, according to Lester.
Yeah, we had an awful lot of Concord grapes on there, and they were sometimes a liability.
Mhm.
But we made a Jewish wine for a while,
Mhm.
sacramental wine, and apparently they helped us. It's never been too big a deal, but I think it's been developed now into a housing project.
Oh, it has it, huh?
Yes,
Oh,
part of it.
I see.
Yeah, they took, actually we had a mile or two of waterfront there on that little river that goes by. Beautiful spot. It almost broke my heart when we sold those vineyards over there.
Well, you probably turned a profit. There was enough years in
Oh,
between that
naturally,
there would have been some appreciation.
considerable profit there.
Does it surprise you, or what do you think about now when you drive out of Yakima down there and you see these hillside after hillside? It isn't like mine's Germany yet, but
No,
it is certainly progressing, isn't it?
yeah, it certainly is.
They say that there's as many as 200,000 acres, mostly southerly facing, that could be
Developed, yeah.
developed.
Yes.
Do you have any feeling for that, looking forward?
Well, I tell you, I'm a farmer at heart. I just love it. I always enjoyed going over there. And of course, it wasn't my direct responsibility because I knew we had good people. But that feeling of being a part of the land, I always enjoyed.
Your father must have given you that.
I guess so.
What do you think it'll be like when you and I are long gone, 100 years from now, over there? How many acres of grapes will be there?
It's going to be difficult to say. Undoubtedly, they are expanding, and as more people populate our Earth, we probably need space, and we got plenty of it over there, as long as we have enough water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the case up to now.
Right. Yeah, well, I don't think they're as bad off as we are on this side this year,
We certainly are.
which is very unusual. Let's see, you described you said the regulatory, the state was very helpful, so you didn't have really problems with the state.
Yes.
Who were your biggest supporters outside the industry? I mean, were the banks helpful to you, or were they a problem, or kind of the people that a manager would deal with?
Well, actually, they were just more or less outsiders kind of watching us. Naturally, the wine industry had to build up a reputation first. I recall our initial contacts when we were able to go right to the tavern, etc. And I did this many a time. You know the type of people that were frequenting most of those taverns.
I sold them too. I sold Christian.
Yes, right. So you're pretty well acquainted. And we had to listen to a lot of talk, but I recognized it had to be done to create business, and we did it.
You built your base.
Yeah, we just finally built it up.
When I joined the winery, 69, about 40-some% of the Christian Brothers was dessert wines too, and many of the, including not so much Robert Mondavi, but certainly Louis Martini, many of those people
Yes.
were, their base was considerable. 20, 30, 40% of their total production were in dessert or sweeter wines too. A lot of people don't think about this, John, but about 75 or 80%, that's all right, I'll get to them. We still like a little touch of sweetness with them, so there wasn't anything wrong with those sweet wines, especially coming as they did. And after the Second World War, they were more interested, they were a lot interested in the alcohol content at that time.
Yes.
Weren't they? I mean, this is...
Oh, yes. We made considerable, what we call now dessert wine, like Tokay and ports and sherry. We had 2 distilleries. We had one here We had one in Eastern Washington.
The one that almost blew, huh?
That's right. Well, I think they were running it day and night.
Yeah, they were.
They probably, somebody went to sleep.
Yeah, I've forgotten what the story was exactly, but he made a mistake, and it could have been costly, but
Yeah.
it was rectified. Well, there you are. It was rectified.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else that occurs, John, about the industry that's meant a lot to you personally? Does your daughter like wines now? She
Oh,
was,
yes.
I guess she was.
In fact, she spends considerable time traveling. They just returned from Italy, where her husband took his several months off, like they have these arrangements in the offices. And she loves Italy very, very much. You know, we have gone over there repeatedly, and
I bet you've interested a lot of people through the years. You weren't just in the taverns and selling wines. You were a lot of people in Bellevue and around us here owe their love of wine to your proselytizing.
well, it's surprising how few people actually know about it. I became interested in various other endeavors in the meantime, but my first love was with the wine deal.
Do you have anything else comes to mind that I didn't ask you? That
No, I think you're very nice of you to address me and to get acquainted here. And I hope that one of these days we can sit together some evening and enjoy a little past.
Well, I'm very proud of you people, and it was a wonderful thing interviewing all of you because I owed the last part of my working career, the last 20 years before I retired, to people like yourself who made the industry, and I could come along and share it. It's been a wonderful thing. So you're to be congratulated.
Well, I certainly appreciate this very, very much. I didn't know exactly who was behind this and who was trying to, because every once in a while someone will call up and they say they want to write a book on the wine industry, and I'm not too anxious to listen to everybody.
Well, I think I would certainly highly recommend Ron Irvine if he hasn't called yet, because he and Walter Clory, together
Oh,
are,
they work together.
yeah, are combining, and I think they will write the definitive book that these tapes will kind of complement.
Yes.
And,
But you were approached by the other agency then.
well, no, this is the only since I am also writing a book
Mm-hmm.
on wine tasting,
I see.
and I'm doing videotaping with it. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got about 100 wineries on videotape already on the West Coast. So we look forward to releasing that sometime in the next 4 or 5 months.
I made a peculiar observation in my life. I find that women have a very keen sense of taste, and they are much more determined in telling you what they want. I know my daughter likes Chardonnay, and not every Chardonnay. She just goes, I don't know where she gets it, but she brings all kinds of wine to us here, but it has to be a dry wine. She doesn't want any sugar. My wife equally, she doesn't like sparkling wines, champagnes. We had an anniversary, wedding anniversary a few days ago, and I put a bottle of champagne in the refrigerator, and in the evening I served it. She said, "Where'd you get that?"
John, how many years did that commemorate, that celebration? How many years of marriage?
47.
47.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, you're a little better than we are. We just pushed 40, didn't we, Pat?
41 now.
41.
Yeah,
41.
41.
We're creeping up on you.
Yeah.
We're coming right back at you.
It's just amazing how quick.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
And wine has got a role in all of that. You're certainly right. The scientists too now have determined that you're absolutely right about wine and women. Women are, and tasting in women. Women are more perceptive than men naturally. The body chemistry of a woman is such that she can be more perceptive. That doesn't mean that any one woman is better than any one man. But as a group of people, they are very perceptive, and they make good winemakers as a consequence.
Yes,
I'm
it's
happy to see
surprising.
the industry opening up now.
That's why
to
quite
so
a
many
number of more winemakers and
But the rest of us guys, we can enjoy it.
yes,
Right.
that's right.
We may not taste as much as they do, but we enjoy it, right?
You know, in your travels, can you suggest which company has been the most progressive and capable wine maker in the industry?
In Washington?
Yes.
Well, if I did have the opinion, I certainly wouldn't put it on tape.
Yeah.
I might tell you privately when this tape is
I
on.
see.
But all the rest of them who listen to this tape would not appreciate the fact that I single out your company, right? That's the only thing I could do is single out your company, right?
Very good. Well, that's mighty.
That would be, see, I spent my years in public relations, see,
Yes.
so I've got to watch out. I've got to hedge my bet.
Very good.
Well, I think, though, that in answer to your question, your former company has been very, very forward, and it has been very, I almost use the word paternalistic, but that sounds kind of critical. They played a good role. They're a big company,
Yes.
but they haven't obliterated or, tried to stamp out. In fact, they've encouraged the industry to grow and to help it along. So I think it's a much healthier industry in this state than in some other states, especially California, where the growers and the vintners like to fight each other. They like to be, like the warriors of old, fighting each other all the time, and it's crazy.
Well, do you think it might eventually come to the point where the grower doesn't manufacture at the same time?
Probably not, because they're so small in the state. If
Quite a number of small ones. Yeah.
so they have to really be their economy is economy of scale, and they're small enough that they can produce 50, 100,000 cases even,
and make a go of it.
and make a go of it, right? And so it offers more opportunity. You see it also in brewing now. There's a lot of small brewers.
Yes.
They don't go out and raise the barley, but they're able to make an operation in a very limited sphere, a distribution sphere. So I think that's part of the romance of it. So no, I would say go away. But you're seeing more and more, like the brewing industry, there are 4 or 5 brewers now that do 92% of the total beer business in the country. And as you know, E&J Gallo does 25% of the total wine business of the entire country.
He still does that.
Yeah, and so in other words, if you get 20 wineries in California, you'll find again 75 or 80% of the business. So I guess that's just part of the way society is organized at the end of this century, is that fewer and fewer companies make cars and shoes and grapes and, grape wines and things. But I think this is unique. I think it has a lot of that, the element of farming, the element of going to the land and getting from the land something which is beneficial, not simply to put bread on the table, but to add to the well-being of mankind. And certainly grape wine does that. Grape wine has a mystical role in society. I truly believe that. And that's why I write the magazine and try to protect the overall interest of, because as you know, you went through the last one. I was born in 1927, so I was born into the Prohibition, and my grandfather lost his tavern to the wine, to the Prohibition, his business. So I have that kind of root too, and I'm just saddened that society is drifting back into a control mindset. So I think all of us have got to fight that.
Well, it was quite interesting meeting people from foreign countries and foreign areas. For instance, we had people from Australia. They had heard about us, and they'd come and we'd tell them what we had done here. And now the reputation of those people are really quite well known, gradually planting.
Do you think that like Herman Wente and others who came up early and saw the opportunity here, do you look for more of California interest to develop up here?
I don't think so. No, I think they have plenty to do, and they have a very favorable climate, and it's a very aggressive state. Population increasing right along. No, it'll always remain.
I do. In one way, though, they're providing us our winemakers. Many of the winemakers are from Davis.
From
you know,
Davis, that's right. Yes.
So I guess they're populating us in a different way.
Yeah, Washington State University has been quite helpful frequently too. They have been perhaps more helpful to the juice industry, apple juice, you know, some grape juice too, I think.
Well, the people who are sponsoring this videotaping, the Washington Wine Commission, are of a consequence of the state allocating some of the taxes to the promotion of wine. So the state is conscious of this. I'm fully convinced that there will be 100,000 acres, 10 times the acreage, 100 years from now. I've asked everybody that question, and everybody hedges their bet, but I'm not the least bit, because I think we drink so little wine in this country per capita compared to most of the world. I mean, almost every country. Your country, Germany, is about 6 times what we drink here, and so.
France probably 10 times.
10 times, yes. So it will grow. Our appetite will grow, and you are one of the pioneers that made it so. And I think you should keep that till your last day. And when you watch it, when we watch all the rest of them down here, we'll have a sense of pride that we were involved in one way or another.
It certainly is true. And when I go over there and smell those grapes in the fall, it gives you a wonderful feeling.
Do you actually go up and watch the harvest? And
yes. Yeah, we usually stay there and for a couple of days. And
drink in the harvest, huh?
yes, that's right.
Do you ever have a glass of wine when you're over there?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you have a glass of wine or two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know the people pretty well over in the plant, and I'm quite impressed with the other plant down in, what's the name of that place over there?
Yeah, in the Horse Heaven Hills. I don't know what's the matter with our brains today. Our brains are not functioning at the level that they should, but I was going to say Riverside, but it's...
No.
Can you imagine both of us forgot the name? Patterson.
Patterson, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely magnificent. And it is a...
They're very, very capable men there, too.
Well, look how well the winery's done, but, you know, in the award-winning end of things and the selling end of things. But, you know, just like you're buying that 500 acres, they're purchasing and investing in that property with the same kind of faith in the future.
That's right, yeah, they bought initially 5,000 acres.
But, you know, I'm saying your purchase of that first 500 acres, their Prosser was the same kind of adventure.
It was.
The same kind of vote for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying yes to both of you. I think you both made good decisions.
Yeah. Well, management seems to be very, very capable there. Do you know Alan Shoup?
Oh, yes, very well.
He doesn't brag much. I go up there occasionally when they sometimes have a new product, and they'd like me to taste it. And he comes in, looks, never says anything. Yeah, he's a people man.
He thinks a lot.
Yeah, he does a lot of thinking.
Yeah. Okay, well, I certainly thank you, John, for the opportunity of both meeting you, and And
Well, I hope we can stay in touch. How about the Enological Society? Do you belong to them?
yes, I belonged from the beginning, and we'll interview some of those people
Well,
also.
most peculiar thing, we immediately thought we should belong to it. So I went out a check and I mailed it. And a couple of months went by, the check didn't come. So I called them, and apparently the check was lost. It took 2 years to find the check in some drawer, I guess. So we never joined the Enological. But I would join right now if you get somebody to
Oh, I'll
send
get
me
somebody.
paper.
I'll get somebody to give you a call.
Yeah.
I'm up on the hill over by West Seattle, and I like to go and taste. You taste the same wines that they tasted, and then you can rate these wines yourself against these famous tasters.
Yes.
So it's kind of a way to find out whether your judgment is still somewhat
Yes.
near what the standard is supposed to be.
Well, I follow this wine man in the Times quite often.
Yeah, Tom Stockley. Yeah.
Yes.
You remember there used to be a little humorous column in there. I don't know if it was for 8 years. Every week next to Tom Stockley's column, there was a little box saying, "What is this? What is that?" with a little cartoon. Well, that was my column. I was in the Times
Oh, really?
for 8 years as a little, it was "What is Chardonnay?"
Yes.
It's or whatever it is. So yeah, I know Tom very well. But you want a membership in the Enology Society,
Yeah.
Enological Society.
Yeah.
Well, I'll certainly let them know about it.
Appreciate it very much.
Okay, I guess that's it.
Very
Are we
good.
done?
Yeah.
That's the way this thing goes. When we're done, we're done.